Heyo everyone, Misha be barking here. Sorry this video's been delayed by a week. I was supposed to have this out last Sunday, and then my sink flooded. So after that whole debacle, here we are, a week later. So yeah, again, apologies for that, but let's get into the video. I don't talk about it much here, but I'm a musician. I play various woodwinds, sing, and I'm learning how to play drums, as well as composing my own music, from brass band to orchestral. While music has definitely grown in the furry community since last I talked about it, it's still a fairly small and under-supported portion of the fandom as a whole, compared to the visual arts and fursuits, which is kinda weird considering how many wonderful and talented musicians I've met since joining this community. So imagine my delight when I learned about Aural Alliance, a hub for furry musicians to come together and support each other, and to have a centralized place for their music to be uploaded and listened to. Now I've talked about something similar years ago called Fuzznet Music, and this new group is actually run by the same person. Finn, or Trash Panda, is a raccoon who lives in Germany and is always looking for ways to boost up fellow furries and get them in the spotlight. This led to them creating Fuzznet Music in September of 2021, and was an awesome way for musicians to find each other and meet new friends, and for listeners to find new artists who they may have previously not seen. Fuzznet had the music and artists on their website, but they also had playlists on Spotify, Apple Music, and really any music sites you were using. As a musician myself, seeing Finn create a space like this for smaller musicians to get their shot in the spotlight was awesome to see. Music to me is a unifying force in life and oftentimes creates strong bonds for many. I'm still great friends with a lot of my musician friends from college, and I treasure them and all the memories we've created through reading dots on a page together. Fuzznet unfortunately had to stop in mid-2022 due to financial reasons and time constraints, but this laid down the groundwork for Finn and taught them valuable details and things to look out for if they ever tried something like this again. And they did, with Aural Alliance being introduced in June of 2023. But enough yapping from me, why not hear about all of this from Finn themselves, shall we? The second half of this is going to be in an interview style, and I'm going to use music from Aural Alliance in the background, as well as some visuals from some of the music videos. So I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, let's dive on in. So I am here with the wonderful Finn the Raccoon, also known as Trash Panda. Go ahead and say hello.
I'm wonderful, you're wonderful.
Well, you know, we're both wonderful. It's like the Keanu Reeves. You're breathtaking. All right, so just as a broad general question, what is Aural Alliance?
Aural Alliance is our new little furry music label, launched about like half a year ago, and well, it is basically a collective of artists coming together, working together, and trying to get furry music into, like, you know, spread out more into the community and giving them a bit of a platform and a infrastructure to support them.
Yeah, we talked about it last time, but like with visual arts and like creative arts like fursuits and stuff, that is so widely seen throughout the community. So to have a general hub for furry musicians, that's a really welcome thing to have.
Yeah, we have like, what? There's like 20 websites, both from furries and non-furries, to share like various artworks and stuff. And we don't really have anything in the furry community yet that has anything that resembles like a proper database, like a proper list that you can just easily access and like find a bunch of artists. With Aural, we at least have our team first, and we're working on more stuff to have like a proper database for where every artist can access it and be like a proper general anchor in the furry music community, to have a place to go to, a place you know you can find your stuff.
Okay, yeah. Kind of hoping to be the next DeviantArt without the NFTs and the AI art.
Oh, I would hope so.
Yeah. All right, so this was a bit of a topic on Twitter a couple days ago, but to you, what is furry music?
I think it's pretty simple. Like, there's a bunch of people out there who try to really make a fuss about what actually is furry music, which one is valid, and, you know, how it should sound. But like, to me, and I think to most other, I would say, rational people, furry music is really just music made by furries. It's pretty simple. Like, we have our community. I mean, we have furry artists, right? They're just normal artists outside the furry fandom. It's just what makes it special for us is that it comes from our community. And I think the same would apply to music, where music made from our community would be a bit more special to us because, like, you know, it comes from our group, it comes from our collective. And that's a bit of special note on there, because I think furry in itself really lives on its art. Like, it's built on art, and furry artists themselves do deserve that small notation to it, you know, like, if they want it anyway. Yeah. Anyone's free to call themselves a furry or not, but I think furry music is just music made by furries.
Yeah, I agree with you, where it's like, oftentimes, like, furry musicians will have an aspect of like furry in their album or their name or their songs even. Like there's people who make songs about being a furry, and there's people who make songs about just everyday life, but they use their persona as like the album cover. And you don't even have to go so far as to do that, but yeah. I agree with you with it's just music made by furries. Why overcomplicate it? All right, back on topic a little bit. Tell me a little bit about Fuzznet Music, which was your first project before Aural Alliance.
Yeah, like Fuzznet was our first attempt at this whole idea of bringing furry music together. And initially, like with Fuzznet, we kind of did the, I'd say, more standard approach that you would see from other labels, right? Where, you know, we do all the distribution and stuff, but for example, payment always like only the artists that like the artists get the money from the streams they make with their songs, and only them. And that is one big difference. And also it was a bit more, let's say, centralized. So everyone was kind of working for themselves, and everyone was only reaping the rewards from themselves. So you'd still had the occasional people who just didn't make the same number of streams and they were going away with 20 cents a month, and that's just very unsatisfying for people, right? Even if it's good tracks, sometimes they just don't really get listened to, and you're gonna be disappointed at the end of the month when like you barely make a buck.
Yeah.
So the main difference with Fuzznet and Aural is Aural does it completely differently, where we actually distribute all the earnings between all the artists equally, and it leads to the fact that even the smaller artists, or the ones that are a bit more niche, actually reap the same rewards as the ones who are a bit more successful, at a quite small cost to the more successful ones.
Okay. And the more successful artists are aware that like they're gonna all be paid roughly the same amount. Like everyone's agreeing to this. Everyone's happy with this arrangement.
Like we're pretty open about it. We have on our about page how we do the funding pipeline with the splitting and where the funds go to, where they come from, and how they're used exactly. So it's all transparent. It's all made very clear during the application process, and everyone's really on board with it. Like our artists really. You see the effect that it makes with people who are really eager to actually help each other out because they actually get something from it. We had some artists, basically, it's on our side as well, where they specifically said that, yeah, you're actually encouraged to help people because you know that if you help that person, you know, if it's like a track, if you know you can like maybe improve it a bit and it's gonna bang a bit more, right? They're actually going to have a bit of the share as well.
Yeah, it feels like it's encouraging like everyone to come together and make the best versions of themselves and help each other out, which in my opinion is a big part of what music is. Like it is very much a thing that brings so many people together in so many different ways, be it a favorite song or people meeting through writing music or even listening to music, or there's many stories of people meeting at shows and everything. So just having a label that's encouraging that come togetherness is really exciting to hear about.
Yeah. So with Fuzznet, you kind of had a bit of like, I wouldn't necessarily say toxic, but like a slightly negative competitive spirit, right? And in comparison with Aural, you really see the difference in the actual like the communal spirit there. Like it's way less competitive, and we have way more engagement with each other. People are offering new services to each other, like helping each other out. Like right now we just organized one of our artists who has some connections to like some management bureaus to get some gigs and stuff done, and they're actually like offering themselves to help out with that for the others in the team. And while we did have like a very, very nice and very lovely team with Fuzznet, we didn't have the same kind of cohesiveness. So with the new system, it's definitely much better for everyone involved. It's much cheaper to run it that way too, which is also probably something we're going to talk about in a second.
That is something we're going to talk about.
And it's also way less work internally because, for example, like with Fuzznet, if every artist basically gets their own split from their own stuff, you have to track every track's performance and then have to do separate payments for each artist.
Oh, yeah.
And I can basically cut away that entire step, which was really the majority of the time I spent on this whole management stuff. And now I can just take all the streams Aural Alliance gets as a whole and like put it all into one pool, and everyone just gets the same cut. No much math, no much tracking, performance tracking or whatever. It's just tap and go and done.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so we kind of touched on it in the beginning of this interview, but in your opinion, why is Aural Alliance needed?
Well, for one, in a more general aspect, I think you can probably relate as like part artists, and many out there can relate, because nowadays, if you want to create anything, you basically have to be like your own whole marketing agency. You have to know PR, you have to know marketing, maybe design and all that kind of stuff, just to actually get your art to the people, right? If you just post your art or just post your music, basically nobody's gonna know it, nobody's gonna find it, nobody's gonna see it. So you have to do all this work that usually is done by professionals, right? So that you actually get out at all. So many of our artists actually had way less than 100 listeners on Spotify, for example, before they joined us. And with something like Aural, you basically take this whole work, like we take care of all that work, the distribution, the promotion, all the design stuff. Like we help out where we can, while the artists can actually focus on the art themselves, which is just a huge alleviation of like stress and work for people, especially because the results can be so varied depending on how much experience you actually have in these places, right? Yeah. Some artists even might have 15 years of experience making music, but they barely ever had anything to do with like marketing or whatever.
Yeah, I can definitely relate on that side of things with like, if you want to make content of any caliber, you gotta be good at making the content. Obviously, you gotta be good at marketing yourself. You gotta learn Photoshop or GIMP or some kind of visual making software. You gotta make TikToks, you gotta make YouTube shorts, you gotta do everything. You gotta like market yourself out, Twitter, everywhere. So knowing that there's something that'll help you with that, that feels like it would be such a relief. Anyway. Yeah, as much as possible, yeah. One of my friends, Papa Matt, was talking about on Twitch, their biggest growth isn't from Twitch. Their biggest growth is on other sites, and people go to his streams. So yeah, you gotta throw yourself out there everywhere, and to have help with that, I'm sure, is a huge relief.
It helps that I actually worked in social media marketing management before, full time for a while, and yeah, it's just a thing that most platforms like Spotify and stuff, they want to keep you on there, and they don't really branch out much. So like most of the growth and most of the conversion usually happens off platform, and you have to know how and where and when to do it properly to actually achieve any tangible results. And the second aspect with why something like that is needed is within the furry community, especially, it's pretty clear that it's a very visual community, right? Mm-hmm. While music and writing is usually left, like writing is even further down the priority list, sadly. Yeah. And musicians and writers basically have this problem that they're mostly just struck aside. There's not many places that actually have any kind of proper support structure, and it's really hard to find people because they're very spread out and very niche, and without any leads on where to go and what to find, you won't really find all these little gems spread out throughout the area, right?
Yeah.
So something like Aural basically helps to, for one, actually bring the whole thing to people's minds to actually be aware of it, because it is still surprising to me how often I ran into people who weren't even aware that something like the furry music scene even exists. So Aural does a lot of this kind of, educational vibe that like, hey, our community has more to offer, you just have to look.
Yeah.
While also making it easier to look for it, which is the most important part in this whole equation.
Yeah, because before we talked about Fuzznet last time and Aural Alliance this time, I could name like maybe 2 or 3 furry artists or furry musicians.
Yeah.
And now, there's a whole category of them. Like, I could probably name 5 or 6 off the top of my head. I'm not going to, because we're not going to test my memory, but you know.
Yeah, and even since Fuzznet closed down, there was actually a lot of people who were kind of inspired by the work and strung up their own projects, started some support themselves. There's newer projects and projects that always already existed before, like Tricky Stoop or Magic Records, right? Who even recently got into the documentary from on the fandom, right?
Oh yeah, the one by
So-
Ash Coyote.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole since Fuzznet launched and like try to do something, I'm not saying that I take credit for all of it. That's insane.
You heard it here,
but-
folks.
But it certainly helped make it make people a bit more aware about that corner of the fandom. And in the last 2 years, you had some extreme explosion in terms of new artists and artists that are actually gaining traction. More cons are actually taking more care on how and who they select for the music and like make a bit more effort into putting the music stages up, because that was a huge issue, still is, with many cons that kind of just treats the music aspect, like the music performances at their cons, which are usually a huge part of conventions, right?
Yeah.
Yet they're still kind of treated like second-class citizens and usually don't really get that much of a thought during the planning of the con. Many conventions actually started doing stuff. I actually had even 3 con leads at this point come to me for some advice on what they can actually do about it and how to approach artists, or like what to offer them to make it more worthwhile. Because another problem is also that artists just, they don't get paid, they don't get offered equipment, they sometimes even have to pay for the travel and the hotel stay for performing at the convention. That's just, we're kind of the only community that does that, and it's just a shame. And I think spreading the awareness that this exists and that is a problem, and there's artists there that really want to perform and kind of just need a bit more help into like making it happen, certainly improves things for like everyone involved. You're gonna have nicer shows, you're gonna have happier artists, and you're gonna have people who get awesome shows.
Yeah, I agree. It's wild how much like musicians in general, it's like you're paid in exposure, that sort of deal, where it's like you get there and it's like, where's the equipment? And it's like, well, I thought you'd bring your own. It's like, no, you're a concert venue. You want me to play? There should be like a PA system or something.
Yeah.
And it's nice that cons are finally taking a step in the right direction in that regard, because like there's a whole night where, you know, a lot, like you said, music is a lot of the con, and there's usually like a main stage concert on one of the main nights of the convention, especially at bigger cons. Smaller cons not so much, but bigger cons there's always like a main stage performance, and it's always super big, and there's other performances throughout the day and in different parts of the venue. And to sit there and have none of those musicians receive support and help to get there is really rough.
Yeah, it's especially a big punch in the guts when some conventions, which happened quite a few times this year to my disappointment, that actually just hire, you know, non-furry artists. Like, we have thousands of fucking artists in our community. Why are you taking people outside of it to just like, for like a proper, just, not that they don't deserve it, but like, you know, it's a furry con. We have furry artists. Just get furry artists on there.
Yeah, it'd be like having a guest of honor that has nothing to do with the community. Like,
Yeah.
Fuzznet had to shut down around mid-2022 for various reasons. So what are you doing differently, or what steps have been taken, and what did you learn from Fuzznet to make sure Aural Alliance succeeds and does not meet the same fate?
Yeah, like I said, for one, we heavily cut down costs. Fuzznet was quite an expensive operation to run due to the way we had a distribution set up and with all the management and also the splits that we were using. So things were just quite expensive, and especially like, I would say it was still a bit early in the time of like this whole furry music renaissance that was happening in the past 2 years. So the outreach was kind of not enough, which led to lower income. And since we basically had a bunch of regular builds coming up, we hit a point where we were just unable to pay the huge sum that we needed to basically keep all the tracks up. So Yeah, we ran into these financial issues, and I personally had a bunch of time management issues, and the whole war in Ukraine. My boyfriend is still stuck in Ukraine. And at that time, I was basically just depressed half the year, and I just did not have the headspace to work on anything. I tried to find someone who can at least like keep it afloat, but with the financial issues, that was also a problem. That was also a thing that wasn't quite possible. I can't just hand it over to someone, and they had to figure out how to finance it now.
Yeah, no.
So I did involve all of the artists. Like I said what was up, and we did collectively decide that okay, how we go about it, and we decided we're gonna shut it down and try our best to make a seamless transition. We did spend a lot of effort into recovering all the music for each artist, like help each artist on where and how to re-upload the releases that they had with us, and gave them all the ISRCs that they needed for it to keep the stats as well. So we did make sure that our artists weren't too heavily affected by everything.
Yeah.
One big downside we had with Fuzznet is due to the way we had our distribution set up, once we were unable to pay for things, everything had to be taken down. So what we have now is a completely different system and using a different platform to distribute everything, which is for one cheaper. And it's only upfront cost on uploading a track and not a recurring cost. And that basically cut down the whole cost regarding distribution by almost 70%, which heavily helps us out now.
Yeah.
And basically ensures that we can do this for quite a while. We also had, due to the success that Fuzznet had, we had a lot of people interested in Aural Alliance. So I had a couple people reach out to me and basically help out with initial funding. We had like a seed funding of nearly $2,000, which was enough to basically cover everything for at least a year. So that was already a big win. And another major difference is even in the event that if Aural would shut down for whatever reason, now we can ensure that the songs can stay up. That is a big thing that I wanted to make sure, because there was huge disappointment when all the Fuzznet library went down and not everything got re-released. So now we made sure that even if things go south, all the music can stay up and we can basically just keep it all and not worry about it.
Okay, that's really reassuring to hear. Because, yeah, that was kind of a big downside when I remember you were tweeting about it, or I guess posting about it. They're not tweets anymore. They are still tweets, but you were posting about it.
They're tweets in my heart, all right.
I know.
I will not let Musk win.
They're still tweets, damn it. But yeah, you were tweeting about it and just saying, like, gonna lose the playlists. And I remember being really disappointed because, like, I would listen to a few of the artists on Fuzznet and you could just find them right away. So to hear that you've taken steps and you're making sure that doesn't happen again, that's really reassuring. The other side of this that was also really reassuring to hear was you didn't spring this on your musicians. You weren't just like, hey, Fuzznet's closing. You got them all together and you all had a discussion and came to an agreement and said, hey, this is probably the best thing to do going forward. So it really shows that you really do you really do care. And you really are trying to seek out what's best for everyone involved. Because even with the time restraints, even with everything going on, you still took the time to help them re-release their music on their own. And you still took the time to teach them how to do that. And that's just really awesome to hear.
Yeah, I also just have to kind of like there's a couple people out there, I'm not gonna name them, that kind of really hate me and kind of really hate what Aural is, and they're kind of the opinion that this is just like some scummy for-profit business and I'm just packing like half the earnings into my own pocket. Like, I need to make clear, I make jack from this. I lost nearly $5,000 on Fuzznet and I happily did so. And right now on Aural, I already spent like almost $1,000 for my own money as well, and I have not made a single cent back. And once again, I happily did so because the whole point of what this project is to support artists. I have zero intention and zero need to be scamming anyone.
Yeah.
And this is really just about like, I love furries, I love music, and so I'm just gonna, support the thing I love. and that's
Yeah.
really about it.
Yeah, I have definitely seen the claims, the things that have been said by certain people, to where it's like, knowing you and like talking to you over the years, that's not you. Like, they're representing you in a really bad light, and they're sitting there gloating about Fuzznet failing when you're taking things that you learned from that and applying it to this, and you've already taken steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. And even if, you know, God forbid it does happen again, you've taken steps to ensure that the music stays up and all of the artists are still getting their streams from this. So they can go kick rocks, honestly.
Failure is really nothing more than an opportunity to learn and do better next time.
Yes, exactly. So just for them to sit there and gloat about it and just be like, oh yeah, you know, FuzzyNet was a catastrophic failure, and it's like, no, it fizzled out, and you've taken what you learned from that and are applying it to this and helping musicians again. So where can one listen to Aural Alliance, and where can you find the musicians on your site?
Simply put, kind of everywhere. Like, the main things we distribute to are like the usual suspects with Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Deezer, that kind of stuff. Bandcamp, YouTube, and a couple others that are kind of less known and usually more international. But like, we cover all the main stuff, and there's really no way you couldn't find the music anywhere.
Okay.
And we also have all the release pages on our website, where, you know, each release gets its own page with all the links on it. So you can just get on our release page, check out the releases, and on each page you're gonna have reviews on it, you're gonna have previews, and you're gonna have all the links to that you have. Much nicer than what, for example, DistroKid gives you as like a standard and stuff. So it's customizable, it looks better, and it's much easier to use. A couple people that voiced some criticism that like, hey, what does the label actually do for the song? And it's a completely fair point, and all I can say to that is we're very upfront about it. We make clear why we do it and what benefits to it are. And basically, it's up to you if you want to do it or not, right? It's not like we force anyone. Like, that's just the way we play it, and there are huge benefits that we can measure, and it does quite a lot for us. And that's just how it is.
That's just how it is. And I know with Fuzznet, I found a couple of artists through Fuzznet that I still listen to, or at least listen to off and on. So it does help, and it does work. If a musician wanted to join Aural Alliance, how would they go about that?
We started doing we started with reaching out to artists initially, like directly, asking them what they think of the idea and if they want to be in it, like for our first round. And then with the next, we started making a nice forum to explain everything, gather all the info we need, and then actually go through. So with Fuzznet, mostly I was the one deciding who gets on and who sounds cool. So with Fuzznet, it was mostly just me deciding on who gets in, just like, you know, based on vibes and if they are a good fit and everything. And now we do it the way that we have a form where people can apply. Mind you, the form isn't always there, so we basically make it in waves, right? So we had 2 waves by now, 2 rounds of applications, and people can apply. We collect all the applications and then put them together, and then I give it to our artists. Like, I do some pre-filtering because there is a certain minimum requirements, be it age or quality or experience. You know, not setting the bar too high, because we do want to, you know, find some niche gems as well.
Yeah.
But setting somewhat of a bar to, like, you know, have a consistent quality level at least.
Yeah, there has to
So
be.
I'm pre-filtering that, and all the ones that are, I'd say, like, you know, a good fit for the label. We put them all into a spreadsheet, and then I sent it to our team, and then our whole team was basically voting on each artist, so they can listen to it. Everyone had unlimited votes, so they could vote for everyone, or just 5 people, or just 1. And then we picked the top votes, basically. So we have this hybrid version of making sure that we get people for the label, and then the label itself, like the whole team itself, could actually choose on who we get in based on what they wrote, what they're into. Like, we had some bunch of sections talking about themselves, their music, the thoughts that go into it, and then of course checking out the music itself. So the artists could then decide on who to work with. I think it's a big thing to have, especially since we have this revenue sharing thing. Because if you think about it, every artist that gets in basically gets a cut from everyone else, right? So it's only fair that every artist actually gets to decide who gets in and who gets a part of their, like a cut of their music as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like, if you let too many people in, you know, the slices of the pie are getting smaller and smaller.
Exactly. That's why we limit everything. So we have our limits and set everything up. And that's also the reason why we didn't do a round 3 right now. We're 40 artists by now.
Oh, wow.
And right now we're just making sure that we get everyone set up, you know, get a foothold, and, you know, get in a good routine with everyone. And once that routine is established with the current and the new artists, then we're going to start thinking about opening the next round and how we go about it. So right now, for everyone who wants to apply now, I can't say when we're gonna do the next one. I like not anytime soon right now, but we will eventually.
Okay, so just be on the lookout for when the next wave of applications are.
Yeah, when it happens, we'll be posting it everywhere. It's gonna be on the site. It's gonna be on all our socials. If you follow us anywhere, you won't miss it.
And where are those socials and what are the handles?
Yeah, it's just at Aural Alliance pretty much everywhere, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Mastodon, and on Telegram.
Perfect. All right. The last thing I have to cover is copyright, and if the music can be used in videos or streams or things like that, what people who want to use Aural Alliance music need to know beforehand, or like what they have to have info-wise in like the description, if anything. So if you want to talk about that for a little bit, like, can the music be used in videos or streams is, I guess, the basis of the question.
Yeah, that was also a big thing for us because due to the communal nature we have and, like, I guess the socialist aspect of it, we wanted to make sure that everything we do is actually accessible for everyone, so that everyone can access it in one way or another. Like, there's free ways to access it through SoundCloud and YouTube. And then there's also paid ways, so we want to make sure it's accessible for everyone. And we also understand that creators and streamers and everything are also part of the backbone of our community. And especially, I think, for furry creators, it's nice to have a source of furry-made music for their furry-made creations that they can use freely and openly, and without worrying about any copyright strikes come up. So we use the CC BY 4.0 attribution license. So all you need to do is download our music anywhere or just ask for it. If you send us an email or send a message on Twitter, I can provide the files needed, and then you can just use them. And all you need to do is just credit it. So just make sure it says like the music used in the background is from Aural Alliance or from this artist, and that's really it. As simple and as accessible as possible.
Yeah, that's super simple. If anyone's taken a glance in my video descriptions, I'm assuming it's something similar to that, because like when I use music, I'll usually say like beneath the mask, comma, Persona 5. So something like that, where it'd be like title of track, comma, musician, Aural Alliance.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need. And we also have, like, our website is really stuffed with all the information you need. You can find pretty much anything related to our label on there. And we also have a licensing page where we explain in detail on what our licensing is, what it looks like, what to do and what not to do, and really all you need is to give a glance on that and you're on the safe side.
Perfect. That was another thing you mentioned, was like you hella revamped the website since Fuzznet, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like I noticed that a lot of people were actually, like, a lot more people than I expected actually were caring about the website. And there was a few people a bit disappointed that some things weren't on there or were offloaded onto other sites. For example, like the DistroKid distribution thing. And so we made sure that we actually have everything on one site, make it look as nice as possible, and have everything customized to, you know, our branding and how our artists may want it. So we have a lot more control on how we can make it look, and we have a lot more to look at now. A lot more to look at, a lot more to read. The artist pages are a lot more intricate and have more information on them, and same for the release pages. And I think it's a huge thing for us that we are able to, because it's not something that is really granted. You can't really take it for granted, because many projects out there still don't really bother making a good website, and it's really a bit disappointing for people when they access your website and they basically don't really find anything they're looking for. So I was asking around a lot of people to just take a look at the sites, maybe imagine of what you could look for, and make sure we have that, so it's easy and quick to just find the thing you're looking for.
Perfect. Oh yeah, I actually did have one more thing I wanted to ask about. I remember seeing on, I think it was Twitter again, you were mentioning that you got interviewed by a radio station for a show they did, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was pretty fun actually. So there's this Swiss radio station, Dreifach. They have this segment about queer representation in music, and queer music and how it relates to everything. And they were looking for like a bunch of queer artists on Bandcamp, and they noticed that a suspicious amount of the artists they found are on our label. So they reached out to us and were asking what's up with that, and invited me for an interview on the show. So yesterday we did the recording, and it aired today on actual Swiss airwaves. It's like an actual legit and almost 30-year-old radio station.
Yeah,
and it was a big honor, and I think it was also cool that they weren't furries at all. They had nothing to do with furries. They just found us naturally through Bandcamp and thought it was cool what we were doing, and that we all had this queer representation going on. So we talked a bit about how all this music stuff relates to queer and how socialism plays into it in one way or another. And I think it's a big thing. Many of our artists are queer. That's just furry for you as well.
Yeah.
But we do have an overproportionate amount of queer people, and many of our releases do have something to do with that whole thing. We had the album from Everender with Grief Counseling, which was about her struggle with her transition and her breakup with her husband and everything, all the emotion going into it. And we had GOJII's release that was all about the struggles they're currently experiencing in Florida as a queer person, right?
Oh boy.
And next week we have something releasing also from someone talking about their experience as a queer person and how it affected their life within their family and friends, right?
Yeah.
And I think music is this huge tool, art in general, for queer people to actually process and share their experiences. And people can actually, for one, they can relate. People outside of the queer spaces can maybe learn a thing or two about what does it, and people who are on at the beginnings of the queer life maybe learn a thing or two on how they could tackle their own issues, right?
Yeah.
So there's this huge overlap with what it means to make music for a queer person, all that emotion going in, and every single time without fail, the people that have something like that going on in their life pump all the emotion into their songs and make them even better. Think of it. Most of the most popular songs have some deep connection to them, some deep personal story to them, and it's a huge factor for it. And it's something I also really want to support, because even in our community, queer and trans people still do have it, in society in general, do have it quite hard. So having a space that actually supports that and uplifts that message is also really cool. We also make sure that we do promotional material, that we try, if there's a proper story behind it, that we try to attach it to it so people can read it. The promo material we did for Grief Counseling and Bliss had the text of what was actually going into that album go into it. And I think it also forms more of a connection between the artist and the listener. If the listener actually has a story to follow on why this piece of art actually exists, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a really, really huge experience, and I've been immensely happy and honored that I could represent the furry community in such a positive light with, all its talent on completely outside, like in a whole different corner of the world that has nothing to do with furry beforehand.
Yeah, that's a huge step in the right direction. Like, that is
Exactly.
Congrats on that. That's awesome.
And they were super, super sweet about it too. Like the whole furry thing, during the show, like we did like a 20-minute recording, and then they cut it together because it was a 1-hour segment of the show on the radio. And they basically cut things together. They played some songs in between, so they always like took a section of the interview, talked about it, and then played something. And they did an exceptional job of like, unwrapping what we're actually about, what the mission is, and how it relates to the topic of the show, as well as actually talking about like furries a bit, like explaining it in like a super non-judgmental way, and even noting a few things like the big furry cons and what we actually do, and all the cool achievements we did, like the huge charity stuff we did. Like,
Oh yeah.
they put a lot of care into showing, like presenting it nicely, and I really, really appreciate it, and I'm really happy that I had the chance to talk about that with people, and like bring it to more ears that way.
Yeah, that's awesome that radio station reached out to you for this. Well, that's all I got for you today. That's all the questions I got. Is there any last minute things you'd like to mention before I let you go?
I think generally it's a bit of a tangent, but right now for this year is basically the year of AI, right?
Oh,
people
boy.
are on the verge of existence right now, and there's even a lot of people in our community that kind of embrace these things. And sure, it's cool tech and stuff, but you need to be aware of what it actually does and what it means for artists. And that a community like ours that is built so much on art actually takes care of its artists. Like, make sure like that you share the art, that you actually show it off, that you comment that you actually like it, give it a review or something. Just take the 5 minutes of your day to actually show that you enjoyed the thing you just spend time enjoying,
Yes.
So it's really just a shout out to everyone to take care of your artists. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of things you enjoy, and a lot of people that create cool things, and they deserve to be able to keep creating.
Yes. It's genuinely a scary time for creators of all calibers. So, reaching out, telling different artists, different musicians, and everything that you genuinely enjoy what they're doing, especially in the face of basically robots taking over. We have 1,000,001 movies about why this is a bad idea, but we're still doing it,
Yeah. And every artist I know, even as like I spend a lot of time just going through Bandcamp now with the Aural account and just dropping some money and some reviews on people. And really every single time I got the artist like come at me and be like, wow, I'm so thankful for the review. Like, so often just the first review and stuff. It is such a huge impact for artists when they notice that things actually get seen and be enjoyed. Sure, you can have like 1,000 likes and a bunch of retweets, but if you don't have any comment about like what did they actually enjoy, why did they enjoy it, it's still going to be an empty feeling. So especially in a time where the socializing gets less and less, be it because of how social media works or because everyone gets a bit fatigued, or whatever the reason, it's just very important to take the time to actually show your appreciation, why, and how it made you feel, because that is what actually drives art, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a good opinion to hold. I remember like the college that I went to, we used to have combo nights for like different small jazz ensembles, and we would all get together and play for each other, and then afterwards there would be a critique of like what you did right and like what they enjoyed or what you could do better, and like those were the most beneficial things for me. So if you have comments about like, I really enjoyed this, obviously don't comment negative things or things you didn't enjoy unless the musician is asking for it. That is a big thing, and artists too. Like, don't go and be like, well, I didn't like what you did here, because not everybody's looking for criticisms, but like if you genuinely enjoyed something, let them know, because that really does go a long way. The internet can tend to be a pretty hostile place, so just having that little bit of friendliness, it goes a long way. I remember seeing a Twitter post, I think today, where the person was like, artists, when you post a thing, do you like when people comment on it? And every single artist I've seen quote retweet that, they're like, yeah, we love it. Like, we love seeing the reception that people have on the art we make. So yeah, reach out. Let people know you like what they're doing, because it really does help. And
I think that's a good note to end it on.
yeah, I agree. All right, Finn, well, thank you so much for joining us for this video.
Pleasure to have been here again with you, and thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, pleasure to have
you. Yeah, I look forward to next time we're gonna talk. Hopefully not with a new project again.
Yeah, right.
But it's the same one this time.
We've got making music, my new project in 2024.
But yeah, no, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for the lovely chat, and I hope to see you guys as well. Like I said, we have a website at auralliance.page. Misha's probably gonna be nice enough to put that into the description.
Oh yeah, all of it's gonna be linked
I'm
down
not gonna take a shit, you know.
No, all of it will be linked down below.
And all I can say is cheerio.